What's up guys, Texon Productions here. Today we are doing a tutorial on mastering vocals. So let's get started. So I guess the important step here is to first understand what mastering is. Now mastering gets confused a lot with mixing and all that stuff. Mastering is not necessarily mixing. It's basically the final step, the step that you take where you check everything, you check all your mixes, you make sure everything is smooth, nothing is distorted, there's no harsh sibilances or harshness in your recording. You want to make sure all that is cleared out, and then you also want to make sure the volume between your vocals and your instrument is set to the right places, which I personally think that's the most challenging step. So we're going to be going through basically all of that. So I already have the song mastered, but I'll go through each of the steps that I do to get a song into its position. So starting off, we have our vocal track, and we have our instrumental track. The first thing that I always do is I look onto the track to make sure nothing is clipping, nothing is weird, nothing stands out, and I also look into the instrumental track as well to make sure nothing stands out, nothing that stands out that would tell me that I have a problem, that with distortion or anything like that. Here everything looks perfectly fine, nothing really distorts. It gets a little bit loud here, but not even close to distortion, so we're good on that. So the second thing that I look at is adjusting the volume. So a secret that I like to do is I like to play the whole instrumental. Now I'm not going to do that right now because of our limited time, and that'll be really boring. But if you play it this normally, it might sound okay. And that's the difficult part about adjusting your volume between the vocals and the instrumental track. So let's. I try too hard. Forget it all. So it sounds fine now. The secret is to tone the volume down. So I'm going to go ahead and tone the monitor volume down. Oh, and also another thing about mastering that is super important is having really good headphones or really good studio monitors. Having headphones or monitors that produce a nice flat frequency response. And I know good is a subjective word when it comes to the audio world, but I'm really just talking about a headphone that would really provide a nice flat sound, like Audio Technica's, the ATH M50s and M40s and all that series. And I know that Sony and AKG also make some good headphones as well for that. So you want to really make sure that you have good headphones that gives you a nice response, and also you're in a relatively quiet room with some sort of noise reduction on your ear pads if you're using headphones, and some sort of acoustic treatment for your studio monitors. So anyways, now that's out of the way, let's listen to this in a very low volume. So when you play it at such a low volume, what you're really trying to hear for is if you can hear the instrument and the vocals. The issue when we try to adjust the volume, when we try to master when it's really loud, especially when we're trying to adjust the volume between the vocals and the instrument, is it's hard to tell. We tend to make the vocals way louder, and then the instrument becomes way too quiet. And the way to figure this out correctly is by just playing it nice and quiet. And obviously in this case, it sounds good. The instrument and the vocals sounds exactly matched. They sound like the volume that they need to be at, but most of the time that's not going to be the case. So by adjusting the volume down, you'll really be able to, it's a very nice secret that I do, you'll really be able to get the vocals and the mix correct. So now I'm going to turn it back up to normal. And once you've done that, I think it's also important to turn it back to its normal volume, and then play it again and hear how it sounds. Now I know there's no running and you can hear that it sounds good even with the volume at its normal pace. All right, so once we get the volume stuff out of the way, the other stuff is pretty straightforward. What we're really hearing for now is any harsh any harsh sibilances. I will be doing a tutorial in a later episode of how to remove those sibilances, but in your mastering, you really want to make sure that those sounds are eliminated. There's no harsh S's, there's no distortion, there's nothing weird with your EQ that makes it pop out. So you want to listen to your song for at least 3 times, go over it. It's very easy for doing a master step that we just listen to the chorus or we listen to some of the verse. No, it's really important we listen to the full song at least 3 times. And I also recommend downloading, exporting an MP3 of this file, sending it to your friends, have them listen to it, and if they're masters engineers, then you should also have them, give you criticism or anything like that. But chances are we don't have that, so just send it to your friends. Let them compare this mix that you have, this pre-release mix, to a professional song they listen to. That's usually what I do, and then I get feedback and I know what to fix. Sometimes it's fixed within recording, sometimes it's not, but yeah. If you did record clipping, this is something I forgot to mention, but I'll mention it now. If you did record your clipping just means it's way too loud. The charts, the graphs here go above the line. There's nothing you can do about it. You're gonna have to redo your recording. You're gonna have to go back to the first step of recording. So yes, it's very important that when you record quiet. You record really nice and quiet. If you're recording at 192 kilohertz at 24-bit, there's no distortion or there's no quality loss at all from boosting the volume. All right, so those are some important things to know. Hear it, make sure everything sounds good. Now, that's the issue though. How do you know that your EQ sounds good? How do you know it sounds like what you want it to sound like? This is a secret that I do, is I listen to a mix that I really like, that I'm trying to go for. So for instance, Sam Smith has some acoustic covers that he's done earlier in his career, and I believe those mixes are just beautiful. It really makes his voice really stand out. I just listen to it back and forth and compare my mix to his, and if there's any differences and if there's anything I know I can do, besides the voice difference, obviously, but if there's anything I can do to make it, oh, this sounds a little bit brighter, this sounds a little bit less bassy, sounds a little bit less boomy, then I will go in here during the master stage and change the EQ just a little bit. And after you've changed any setting, even if it's just compression, even if just EQ, even if just de-esser or even stereo reverb, listen to it again at least 3 times. You really want to make sure that you got this step done, and then make sure you send it to your friends before you release it, because your friends are going to be the people that's really going to criticize you if there's anything wrong with your mix, if there's anything that stands out. And you really want to make sure you get that down, and you really want to make sure that everything sounds perfect before you release your mix. So another thing that on the topic of adjusting volume and things like that, if when you're trying to adjust the volume between the I know I'm kind of jumping around here, but things are just kind of coming out of my head and stuff, but if your volume does jump around, meaning that if I turn off compression, I'm gonna give you an example. Here it sounds alright. Now I know it sounds a bit loud. There's no running away. If you realize that your full master, it sounds a bit loud here, and then it sounds pretty good when it's quiet, you gotta go back and do your compression. That means something is wrong with your compression. If you can't get the volume right, even using my tip of turning down the volume very, very low, and you still can't get it right, then there's something wrong with your compression. You're gonna have to go back and figure out how to do that. I did do a video on compression, and I'll also link that in the description. Anyways, that's basically, sorry, I'm checking the time. That's basically how you would master a song. You just want to make sure all those gets done. You want to make sure that the volume is good. And on the topic of volume, once you have the ratio set, once that's set, my tip is to go as loud as possible without clipping. So you can go into this bar in Adobe Audition, and if I make the full master very loud, it will clip. So I just go as loud as I can without clipping, because I want as much quality as I can get from the MP3 file, because MP3 is compressing. So I do want to go as loud as possible without clipping, and you just want to play the full song, play the loudest part, and just adjust this to make sure that it doesn't clip. So something like let's go here. Something like that would be too loud.
Now I know what I said will always stay, but I know tomorrow brings a change. I am not the same.
Now I know there's a loud part on the second verse, so I'm going to skip to that. So obviously that's clipping, so I'm going to go ahead and lower that. And play it again. If you clip once or twice, it's not a big deal, but I don't like that, so I'll just go a little bit quieter, and if it still clips, I'll just leave it as it is, because you can't really hear it on if it's only clipping like once or twice. If it's clipping a lot, obviously you're going to have to lower the volume. So yeah, that's about it. Again, listen 3 times at a good volume, maybe even the loudest volume you can go, to really listen for those harsh sounds. If there's anything wrong, you're gonna have to redo it, you're gonna have to fix it, you might have to redo your EQ, you might have to redo your compression, but it's worth it to get the audio that you want. So that's about it. I know this video is kind of different in a way, because I didn't really show you the process, but I went through how I would do, and I went through also some tips and tricks of how I would mix a vocal. And that's it. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe if this video helped you, or like this video and share with your friends. Thanks, and have fun mixing or mastering.